Right. Well, let's go. So I'm Tony Barton from Living Teams, and today is our very, very first team talk where we get to meet one of our lovely clients and talk about teams. And my first client guest is Mandy Philipp. And
Hi.
yeah, you look excited to be here, Mandy. So that's a good.
Yes, I am, and a bit nervous.
That's fine. Yeah, me too. Well, this is the first one we've done, so let's see how we get on. So I just wanted to give people a little bit of background to you. I might have to read some of this because my memory obviously isn't very good. But so yeah, Mandy. Mandy Philipp is from Siemens Energy, which is a 32 billion euros energy business, 91,000 employees all around the world. And Mandy is currently responsible for setting up and running Siemens Energy Innovation Center in Berlin. And if you look at it online, you will see it is pretty impressive. So must be an exciting role you have there, Mandy. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the Innovation Center in Berlin is just one of 4 innovation centers all around the world. And these innovation centers, the strategy is that they are the innovative heart and the kind of glue that keeps Siemens Energy and its partners in Europe together to collaborate and lead the energy transition. And again, one of the things Living Teams loves is working with clients who really make a difference in the world. And there's no bigger challenge than energy and renewable energies, and that's what Siemens Energy is all about. So we first worked with Mandy over 3 years ago when she was part of a team, the Siemens Energy Technology and Strategy team, and we did some work with them. And Mandy was instrumental, I think, in talking about being glue. She was the glue in the team, really, that held them together and inspired, I think, a lot of the team. Mandy's also a mum. She's got 2 kids, an 11-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. So she's a busy woman. Take a breath. So, Mandy, to kick off, when I looked at the Siemens Innovation Center in Berlin, I saw that one of its, like the strap line for it is, let yourself be inspired. So there you are in the Innovation Center. What inspires you about it, the Innovation Center in Berlin?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Tony, for the invite. I feel very honored to be your first guest here. And yeah, coming back to your question, what inspires me most about the topic of the Innovation Center, the Siemens Energy Innovation Center in Berlin, is that we are not just talking about a center as a facility, but we're also talking about the people who are in there, because innovation comes from the people, right? So you need to bring people together to really come up with new ideas, with innovative ideas that will help us to really lead the energy transition. And if we're talking about people, you always need to talk about what do you need? What do you need to be really innovative? And this inspires me the most, that there is a huge people component in it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, again, reading about all the wonderful different creative rooms you have to help people collaborate and co-work and co-create together, the word courage came up quite a bit, and I was curious about that. So what's the role of courage in the work you do?
Courage. I think it needs courage to challenge how we do things. So to not just recall all the things that we already know, but to really be courageous enough to just ask, hey, is this the right way? Or can we do it better? Or So it needs courage to challenge the status quo. So that's why I think it's really important to include the courage in it, and to also think about how to feel safe, how to feel comfortable in challenging the status quo. So yeah.
That's an interesting balance, which we'll probably be talking about in the context of teams, where you need balance. You need challenge, but you also need to feel safe to challenge, so that you're not threatened or you're not overwhelmed by the diverse opinions of others, etc. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Well, as I say, we're very happy to be working with you and supporting the great work Siemens Energy does. So we're here to talk about teams. And often when we work with teams, we invite people to think about the best team they've ever worked with, because it's nice to to look at the aspiration, like what's possible. So it may or may not be the team you're currently working with. I don't know, but tell us a bit about the best team you've ever worked with and what made it the best team.
This was a good task to do, a good exercise when I reflected on that. I was thinking of a self-organized team I worked in. So when you talked about how we started working together, I worked in the strategy and technology department. And within that department, we got the chance to experiment as a self-organized team. And this was probably the best team I've ever worked in.
Was it the fact that it was self-organized that made it the best, or say more about that?
Yeah, so why was this the best team? And one part of it was that we could not rely on the classical manager. So normally you have a manager, and this manager gives you your task, it talks to you about your development, and it makes the manager does the decision making and so on. It does the escalation and so on. It steers the communication with other stakeholders. But within that team, we didn't have a manager. So we needed to find out which roles do we need to cover within the team. It really helped to increase the ownership. So everyone took ownership of how we are balancing the task. What kind of competency and skills do we need? What do we have? We needed to support each other, because normally this is the role your manager takes over. And so there's one thing, it's the ownership, that everyone really took ownership of the team spirit, team development, and also taking care of each other. So yeah, I think it's big part was the ownership topic.
That's very interesting. Mutual accountability. It's like, it's not just my task on the team to get this bit done. It's actually how do we, because in our work we talk a lot about shifting from me to we, but actually having both. So having my own individual contribution, but actually really being aware of this is a collective responsibility. Yeah. So so self-organizing teams, no managers, maybe that's the future. So that we can take ownership of what's important. Anything else that comes to mind about what made that team special?
What it made also special was that the discussions we had about how are we setting this team up without a manager, that we really took the time to have conversations about how are we doing decisions in this team? How are we communicating? How are we getting tasks in and out? What is each team member able to give in regard to time, competencies, skills, and so on. So all these conversations about a team created a lot of trust.
Yeah.
So this is just taking the time to talk, created a lot of trust within the team.
How do you find the time? Because everybody these days is, to be honest, probably quite overwhelmed with the number of tasks they have, and they don't have enough time to do all of those tasks. So how do you find the time to have a conversation about who are we as people? What do we bring to this team? And all of those conversations, which is not just about what are we going to do, but how are we going to achieve the task? How did you even find the time, Mandy?
We just did it. We just did it. It was, we were aware of, we need to find a new system how to operate without this crucial role of a manager. So there was no other way to just take the time. Because otherwise we were just a headless chicken running around. Okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know whom to ask.
Yeah.
We just made it a priority.
Yeah, and I think that again, often the gift that we as trainers, facilitators working with teams, often the biggest gift we have to give teams is time, whether it's a 90-minute virtual call or whether it's a 2-day retreat or whatever, but just to have time to talk about what's going on, where are we going, how are we going to get there, and how are we doing? Yeah, those conversations I think really make a huge difference. Yeah. And what was your role in that team? How did you see yourself and your contribution?
I think I was one of the driving factors to just come up with the idea, because the manager left and then there was a discussion about, hey, what are we doing now? Will there be a new one? And due to the realization, because I already worked with a team before, but with a manager, that I thought I never worked in such a mature team. So it just felt right. So the right kind of people, the right attitude, and kind of already trust foundation. So that's why I was one of the driving factors. Say, hey, let's just try it. And I just ask for the approval so that we can do this. And then really to bring the team into this idea. And because it obviously was a bit more effort for the team. We needed to invest more time and to go through this at the beginning, the valley of tears, I would call it. So yeah, to really convince everyone that this is a good thing to do. It's a good learning opportunity.
And we talked about courage earlier in the context of the Innovation Center and co-creation and collaboration. It's needed to challenge. And it sounds like that's one of the, well, actually, I know that about you, that you do bring the courage to challenge and inspire, let's try something different, so there's an energy about that, which I think is often missing in teams. People sit back waiting for things to happen rather than sensing what needs to happen and taking the initiative. Yeah. So talking about other teams, and one of the things that Andy Den, who you know well, my partner in crime at Living Teams, we often talk about high-performing teams are rare. And the reason they're rare is that most teams don't do the work. They assume that, we're all grown-ups. We know where we're trying to get to. I'm sure it's going to work out fine. But actually, if teams don't have those conversations that you talked about, to talk about, well, who are we? How are we going to work together? How do we make the best use of all of the many different talents that we have? If you don't have those conversations, all sorts of surprises, conflict arise, and actually that is not going to contribute to high performance. What can you tell us, Mandy, because you've worked in lots of teams, what goes wrong?
What goes wrong?
Yeah, why do a lot of teams never really achieve their potential?
This is a good question. One thing that I'm observing is that so often the human connection, we're not taking care of the human connection. Just to make sure that, because we're separating work and private life. So, but we're all special, right? So we have all our experience and thoughts. So everyone has a bag with a lot of things. And to make sure that we know each other. Where are you from? How you are ticking? So how would you, or how can you bring your best self to work? What do you need? And what can I give you? So really this human connections. So we're quite often jumping into solution mode, business mode, machine gun meetings. And then we're losing the human connection. So to feel connected, to feel, within a team.
And I love that the way you explain that human connection. It's like, it's quite subtle. That there's a sensitivity about the way you do that with your fingers. It's like, how does somebody who's in a team where there's lacking human connection, or if you're managing a team, how do you approach that human connection? How do you build it?
So first of all, just being aware that this is important, and then raising questions and listening. So it's not about just talking and throwing stuff at you, but to also listen. I think this is super important. And to then reserve times in a meeting. So if we're really talking about stuff that can be done, so what can I do to do this? So then it's just reserve time at the beginning or at the end of a meeting to just check in with each other. Just ask, hey, how are you doing? What are you up to today? What's the best thing that happened today to you? To just take 5 minutes. And if you do it constantly, you will increase the knowledge about each other, right? So you will get to know each other. And then perhaps you also have a fun moment at the beginning. So you are creating a bit of energy. So
yeah. No, I think you point to something that is just true of us as human beings, because connection is hugely important. If we're going into work, we're working in a team, there's no connection, we don't really care about other people, they don't care about us, it's just about doing the do. The to-do list goes on and on and on, then absolutely, I think that can be exhausting, and it's not rewarding, is it, as a human being who seeks connection. So checking in at the beginning of meetings, checking in at the end of meetings, like how was that meeting? What did we achieve? Yeah. Very simple, small things that make a big difference. Yeah. Yes. The pandemic had unknown consequences, I think, in terms of human connections and what's going on in our lives, and we all experienced the pandemic in many different ways, and teams obviously all went virtual because we had to. I mean, living teams, I can remember, I think I was in Munich working with some of your colleagues in the end of February 20. And I think we went virtual in March and carried on virtually working with teams. And I have to say, we were very surprised at how good a human connection we could create if we were aware of how important it is to maintain human connection, even in a virtual environment. And we surprised ourselves and the teams we work with. Coming out of the pandemic, and we're now still in this hybrid world of not quite sure what percentage of people are going to be back in the office or for how many days. How do you think that's impacting teams?
Can you reframe the question, please?
Yeah, how does the changing environment, because in the pre-pandemic, I suppose the assumption was we would be working face to face and we see each other, we chat in the corridor or over the water cooler or whatever. But now, people are less working face to face. So I'm just wondering what you've seen in terms of the impact of hybrid working.
I think what really increased is the acceptance of hybrid working. So before the pandemic, as you mentioned it, normally we were sure that if we want to have a really efficient meeting or workshop, we need to come together. That's the only way. And the pandemic forced us to accept other ways, and we realized, this is working. This is working. So now also in hybrid workshops, also the virtually connected people are having a voice. So before the pandemic, it was so often you were the only one who was connected virtually, and 20 people were sitting in the room, and you were kind of forgotten. You didn't see the faces. What are you doing over there? I can't hear you, and so on. So it's everyone is equal, whether you are virtually connected or you are in the room. I think this changed, and also the acceptance of companies to invest in technology, to invest in good cameras, to invest in really good IT equipment, so that I'm able to see all the faces and to see what's going on a flip chart, something like that. So yeah, I think this changed. And this is great because it makes us faster. We can avoid traveling around the world and, our CO2 footprint and so on. It made us closer. It doesn't make any difference for me whether you're sitting in China or in India. We're all the same, right?
And it's interesting that, as you said, it was out of our control, and the pandemic was something that we had to deal with and adapt, and we were forced to change and were surprised by the results. You were, we were. It is surprising, and that's all part of innovation, isn't it? And sometimes being forced into having to be innovative. A crisis is a great way to necessity is the mother of invention, I think, is an English phrase that comes to mind. Let's see, what other questions would I like to ask you? I'll tell you one. This is for our readers of the Living Teams newsletter, and we're doing more and more video content, so it's reading and watching. And we have a lot of friends of Living Teams out there who are clients. It's always interesting to know what is it we bring to teams. So having worked with Living Teams, putting you on the spot here, but say something nice. But what is it that Living Teams brings, do you think, to the world of high performing teams?
I think there are two parts that were so important for me when working together with you. So the one thing is really your focus on the human connections. So, and the second one is your focus on having real good conversation.
So yeah, you were saying Living Teams, we focus on human connection and the art of conversation.
Absolutely. And you brought us tools to really have better conversations. So it's really, even when you realize, okay, we need a different level of conversations where we not just have an opinion here and an experience here and an expert there, but to put this all together, to build on each other, to just throw some balls back and forth. So I think this was, at least from my perspective, this was magical, what happened with teams. When you have the chance to have a really good co-creative conversation.
And what I like about that, see what I did there?
Yeah.
What I like about that is that it's actually quite easy. I mean, this is not complicated or complex. Inviting people to respond in a way to somebody who has just spoken, not by saying, thank you very much, here's my point, but, that's interesting, what you said, what I liked about what you said, or even, I absolutely disagree with what you said, and I'd like to know a little bit more about, help me see what you see before moving on, because so often we just get reload the gun, reload the gun, reload the gun. So yes, I think that's what I like about it as a trainer is, this is not rocket science.
Absolutely.
And it has a big impact. Okay, thank you. We've only got a few more minutes. Now, one of the things that I know about you, because you very bravely were part of a mental health campaign within Siemens talking about mental health, and this was probably 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, nearly.
Yeah. And so you had your own issues with mental health through work, and you went public with it. You produced some videos for other people in Siemens to be supported and helped. What advice would you give to people out there who may be struggling?
I think the most important thing is that you can be assured you're not alone. And to just raise it and saying, I can't move on, or I'm struggling here, will probably lead to something positive. Even if the other people around you are not able to help, but I'm pretty sure you will get a lot of understanding. So, and this is whatever helps you afterwards, whatever are your measures, whatever is your therapy, whatever are your ways to get out of this situation. But the starting point is to raise it to say I'm not okay, and that this is not a weakness.
And you came back. I mean, you took some time off. And when you came back, what has been different for you? You know, how have you, I don't know, do you operate in a different way?
Most of the time, yes. Not always. Yeah. What changed dramatically for me is to prioritize myself. Not every single day, but to always check in with myself when I'm not feeling good. What did you do to just be nice to yourself? So that you took the time, 5 minutes today, to just do what you want to do. And yeah, I think this changed dramatically.
Yeah. And obviously I can tell just by the way you say it, it really pays dividends. Yeah. Benefits. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mandy, for being so open about that. It's health, I think, our health. Without our health, it's very difficult to lead or to manage or to be a good colleague. So and in these very demanding times, and there is a lot of overwhelm, I think it's such a good message for people to hear. You know, prioritize yourself. You know, and it's not easy, but setting some of those boundaries and leaving on time or taking a break at lunchtime, just going for a walk, just to reset yourself. And I think that's something actually we're doing more in Living Teams is sort of having reflection time, which is another form of conversation. It's the conversation with yourself.
Absolutely.
How am I? How am I doing? What do I need before I go back out into the world and do my work? Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I have a few quick fire questions for you.
Cool.
Right. Quiet night in or crazy night out?
Woo, both, but not at the same time.
Good book or a podcast?
A good book.
Spring or autumn?
Spring.
Summer or winter?
Oh, summer.
Brad Pitt or George Clooney?
Ooh, both are hot. George Clooney.
A cocktail or a smoothie?
A beer.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs, definitely.
And I gather you have one sitting at your feet right now. Is that right?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. You've moved on. Right. Well, Mandy, thank you very much for being first guest on Living Teams Team Talk. Really lovely to connect with you and just to actually to have a good conversation. We've been talking about that and good human connection. So I'm sure people will find what you had to say very useful and instructive. So thank you so much for being our first guest.
This was fun, Tony. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Okay, we'll do it again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.